Phil Twyford.
This bill, I think, should be called, instead of the Social Housing Reform, Flexible Purchasing and Remedial Matters Bill, it actually should be called the Flog Off State Housing to the National Party's Property Developer Mates Bill. That would be a far more accurate representation of what this bill's about. It is on the surface some little sort of vanilla kind of enabling legislation, allowing more flexible purchasing contracts, but actually what this bill is designed to do is to give the minister extraordinary discretionary powers to do sweetheart deals with property developers. Instead of simply, as the current law allows, being allowed to extend income-related rent subsidies to the people who buy these state houses off the government, this bill gives the minister wide-ranging powers to do any kind of deal, to crank up the subsidies, crank them down, to do away with the subsidies and just agree on direct payments. It gives amazing freedom and discretion to the minister to do those sweetheart deals. The reason that the national government is giving itself these powers is that they can't give these houses away at the moment. And they spent months saying the Salvation Army were going to take them. And that ended in tears when the Salvation Army said, sorry, not us. Paula Bennett, Nick Smith, Bill English, they've been travelling up and down the country basically trying to hock off these houses to anyone who'll take them, and they're not getting any takers. This bill is about giving the minister the freedom to do sweetheart deals, anything it takes to basically offload billions of dollars of publicly owned state houses. It could, sir, be called the Cabinet Club Housing Policy Bill, because really what's going on at the heart of this policy, when you strip away Paula Bennett's mealy-mouthed platitudes about social housing, really what's going on here is a massive transfer of wealth from the public to private landlords and property developers. So they're looking at divesting, flicking off billions of dollars worth of state houses that have been paid for by generations of taxpayers and state house tenants, flicking them off at knockdown prices to anybody who'll take them. Those houses then will go into the open market. People will make a killing on those houses. I guarantee, sir, that they will end up eventually just simply being rented back to the same people who need a decent roof over their heads, but this time they'll be paying higher rents, and the taxpayers will make up the difference with a hefty subsidy directly into the pockets of landlords. That is the model that Bill English is pursuing. It is a huge transfer of wealth from the public to private landlords and property developers. That is fundamentally what's going on here. And we saw recently in the New Zealand Herald's reporting of how the National Party funded its election campaign last year. The big cheques were made out by property developers. That's what this policy's the big payback. It's the big payoff. That's what the Cabinet Club's all about. It's about giving big business, in this case property developers and big landlords, the opportunity to put their hand in the public pocket and benefit from billions of dollars of state housing that generations of New Zealanders have paid for, not to line the pockets of private landlords, as this national government wants to do, but to put a decent roof over the heads of the most vulnerable New Zealanders. And nothing rankles more with New Zealanders than that basic idea that the reason we have a government is to make sure that things work for everybody, that every kid in this country gets a decent start in life. That's why, Chris Bishop, we invented state housing in the first place. And I know that your party has never had any truck with state housing. You don't like it, you don't believe in it, you don't want to have anything to do with the people who live in state housing because it makes you profoundly uncomfortable. Because the social and economic system that you stand for doesn't care what happens to the bottom 20%. You don't give a damn about it, and you're quite happy to dismantle the system of social support that's been put in place.
Sit down when I'm on my feet. Point of order. There is a point of order. There is a point of order, and it will be heard in silence. And you can sit there and pointing, and he knows he should be sitting down, and so did you, but you didn't, and he didn't, and, you know. What do you think this does for the reputation of this House, for goodness sake? Now, I have a point of order from the Government Chief Whip.
Mr Chair, this member is repeatedly bringing you into this debate